Hey guys, how you doing today? Seems like a lot of people have been having some struggles in creating maps for BeamNG, especially in the latest versions. I know that when I got started back in January, it was hard to find good tutorials on this. So I've decided to kind of show you guys what I've learned today, and hopefully you'll find this helpful as well. One of the main things that you need to think about with Beam is folder structure and kind of the ins and outs of how they manage the calls to the different assets, like the map files or the textures or whatever it may be. So I've got a custom install of BeamNG. I've got it set up on a different drive because I didn't want it part of my OS. So I've got things installed on my H drive. I may go through how to change your designated drive in a different video, but for this one, just know that if you've got a default installation of Beam, it won't be the same as mine, but you can follow the basic pattern of where things are located. So to get started today, we're going to start with a map that, one of the base maps that I've found works fairly well for me. This is a map called Small Island. Again, this is within your Steam library, Steam Apps Common, BeamNG drive, content levels. This is where all the base levels are stored. You'll notice the mods folder that we'll get to in a minute also kind of has levels and levels folder with some stuff in it. This is where things can get a little bit confusing with so many folders named the same thing. So really have to remember when we're talking about the base game primary install folder and then where your mods are going to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Small Island with WinRAR. And you're going to see inside of here there's a levels folder, Small Island, and a bunch of files. What we have to do currently with Beam is usually take an existing map, create a clone of it, and then edit the clone to create a base map for us to start our custom work with. So inside of your mods folder, I've got mine installed to BeamNG mods 0.024. There's a couple different folders here that are interesting. Again, there's a levels folder and a mods folder. We're going to need to go inside of mods. Inside of mods, this is where I drop all my custom mods from friends and people in the community. Some people put it in repo. I just keep it in top level mods. But more importantly, inside of here, there should be a, if there's not an unpacked folder, you can create one. So imagine you've right-clicked, created an unpacked folder, go into unpacked, and then here, I'm going to create a new folder. Now this folder name is less critical to the map than the other folders. This really can be kind of anything that you want. I'm just going to call this one Small Island Template. And then I'm going to go into that folder. And within this smallisland.zip from our main game content folder, I'm going to drag levels over to here, and it's going to copy everything over within this. This may take some time depending on the speed of your drives. Okay, so now we've got everything from our Small Island zip file from our game content folder extracted into our 0.024 mods unpacked, top level name, Small Island Template, levels, and if you click inside of levels, you're going to see another Small Island. Wow, this gets pretty confusing, right? Which Small Island are we talking about? This is kind of what hung me up at first. I didn't know which level needed to be, which name needed to be edited or whatever. The only one that really matters to how the game sees your level is this second folder. It's the last named folder before your art and export and forest and everything else. So if you want to change the name that not that appears, but the one that matters the most, that gets referenced in the multiplayer servers and everything else, this is the one that you really need to focus on. So I'm going to call this one let's just call this base template. Now it's important to know that I've got a couple of other different templates in here. I don't want to have the same secondary name as any of the others, so I'm going to just make sure that none of these have base template in it. That one's pixel template. That one's pixel multi. You can see I do a lot of messing around here. That one's pixel island, playground. Okay, we're clear. None of the other templates say base template in it, so we're good. So base template is going to be kind of the foundation for where everything goes for the rest of this video. Now, since we've copied everything out of the base small island map, we can close this zip file. We can also close the link back to our main BeamNG installation folder, Steam apps, common, BeamNG, content levels. We don't need this anymore. So now we're just going to focus on our main mod level. Now, inside of base templates, there's going to be a lot of different files here, and I'd really encourage you to spend some time getting to understand these levels or these files and folders. Again, it kind of took me about a week to really wrap my head around it, but once I understood it, it wasn't that bad. So right away, inside this one, we're going to hop into Info.json. This is kind of the starting point that BeamNG seems to want to look at for pulling in the map title and information about the map. So here I'm going to set the title to Pixel Monkey base map template. Spawn north as a default spawn point. This will be fine for now. Description, I'm just going to call this a good place to start. I'm not going to worry about previews or anything else right now. And the last thing I'm going to change here is the authors. I'm going to just change this to Pixel Monkey. It doesn't really matter what the name is, as long as you can, you're going to want to claim yourself as the author. So I'm going to save info.json, and that's going to be where we end with this particular file. Now you'll also see notice that I'm using Notepad++. This is the tool of choice for me for editing these XML files and the text files. There's other tools out there like Visual Studio that can do what we're doing here, but I've found Notepad++ to be my favorite because it's free, and I don't have all the extra dev stuff that Visual Studio has in it. Okay, so we've edited the info file, and so now we're going to move on to the next step here. What we're going to need to do is change some of the references to assets right now. So right now, the map terrain files, the textures, the objects, everything is linked to the old small island. So usually what I like to do is I like to go into art, go into shapes, and find something in here like buildings. What I'm looking for is a materials.cs file or main materials.json file. So inside here, you can see that there's level small island art buildings. So these are all of these color maps and texture maps are still being referenced back to the main game file. So if we were to launch this map as it was, any changes that we made to these files, textures in this folder wouldn't be seen because it'd still be looking for the old zip. So what we need to do is we need to update this path. Now, what path are we going to update it to is a big question, right? So we're going to go back to our folder here, and we need to look at our folder structure. So BeamNG mods 0.024. We need to retarget it. So we had the original small island template. That was the top level one we don't need to worry about. But this is where we need to start tracking, is from levels, whatever you named your template, and so on and so forth. So looking back at this, the old one was levels small island / art. This was levels base template / art. So what we need to do is we need to change all of the instances of small island over to base template. So what I like to do is you'll see there's some instances that start with the slash and some of them that don't start with the slash. I've had the most success in starting without the slash. So starting with the L in levels, selecting all the way through the old map name and including the end slash. I'll copy that. And I'm going to use this really cool feature inside of Notepad++ that lets us change this text string in all of the files in a folder structure. So here we're going to go to search. We're going to go to find. We can go find in files. You can see since I had selected it, it put it in the find what for me, which is great. Now we need to replace it with the same basic string, except we need to update the file name. So remember, don't include the slash at the beginning. Make sure the slash is at the end. And we're just going to change the middle name here, or the name to what we chose for our basic map name. So mine was base template. So I'm going to update this to base_template. The other thing here is remember directory. This is cached from the last time I've done this. So make sure that you retarget this. So mine is in the H drive, levels, mods, unpacked. We're working within the small island template folder. And you could do it from this level, but I like to actually go directly into my named folder for this to start in. So selecting base template is the same as where all my files are. Click OK. Now what this is going to do is it's going to look at all of the text files in this folder that we just selected here, and it's going to change all of the text instances of levels small island to levels base template, which will redirect where the game looks for all of the game assets. And this is really important for us. So with all of this selected, I'm going to make sure match whole word only is not selected, match case is not selected, because sometimes the game maps have varying levels of case assigned to it. Also making sure that in all subfolders is selected and in hidden folders is selected. So I'm going to do replace in files. Again, we're here within find in files, replace in files, not the standard find and replace. So it's going to say, hey, we're going to do a lot of work here. So I'm going to click OK. And it's going to start going through all of those text-based files and doing the updates for us. And as much as possible, I'm going to go ahead and let this video run in real time, just so people get a sense for how long it should take to do certain tasks. There's nothing worse than having a video jump around and getting kind of lost in the process. So I want you guys to see this stuff in real time. So we're almost done with this. Now, what we can see down here is it's replaced that text string in 3,995 occurrences. Usually you're going to want to see a number between 4,000 and I've seen up to like 8,000 depending on the map that you're doing updates on. Small Island actually is fairly small, so it doesn't have a lot of objects to replace, so that's good for us. So I'm going to hit close. Now what you'll see is this materials file that we had opened up earlier now says levels base template art as the prefix, and it's been changed not only for the ones without the slash but as well with the ones with the slash, and that's important to make sure that we didn't miss any of these references back. So I'm going to close that out, and at this point what I like to do is I like to make sure that from the base update where we're swapping these strings out, that the level loads for us properly. So I'm going to go and load this up. I'm going to launch Beam. It looks like Beam is set up currently for my last screen size, so we'll adjust that. Sorry about that. Go into free roam. And then now what we're going to look for is the map that we just created, PixelMonkey base map template. So also here, when you hover over it, you can see on the right, description is a good place to start, and down at the bottom, authors, Pixel Monkey is still set. So it read in what we changed in the info.json file perfectly. All of the icons and most of the names within here, previews are all still going to be the same from Small Island. It's because we haven't updated any of it. So this is all normal. All right, so let's go ahead and load into level now and see how we did. All right, so in the level we can see that everything loaded in fine, which is great. We've got all the objects here. We still see all the plants and everything else. So let's go ahead and get into the video, like the map editing mode on this. So the way we're going to edit is by hitting F11. It's going to take a second to load things in, and you're going to see a couple things here, hopefully, like a scene tree and inspector. If you don't see this, try going to Window and making sure, like you can click a scene tree there to bring it up if it wasn't or whatever. This is where you're going to find your panels. So now that we're in here, we're going to use WASD to kind of fly around the map, just to kind of look at it real quick. And so basically I'm just using right click on my mouse, holding it down and rotating, left and right to change my view, and then W to move forward, S to move backwards, A to the left, D to the right. This is basically everything from the original map. And then what we're going to do in the next step is we're actually going to delete all of these placed objects, all of the rocks, all the roads and plants and everything else, so that we've got a clean slate to start from, to build our own map from. Now in the past, I would do this manually in the editor by clicking on the forest tool and then selecting a bunch of things and then hitting delete. And while that will work, there's actually a much faster and easier way to do this. I think that's a little bit less confusing. And we're going to do that outside of the editor, even outside of the game completely. We're going to do it directly in the JSON files themselves. So let's go ahead and exit the editor by hitting F11. And then we're going to go ahead and exit out of this map now that we've verified that it works fine. And let's go into Windows Explorer. We don't necessarily need to save these changes that we did. That was just me deleting the tree. We'll talk about what happens when you save in a later step. So I'm just going to say no for now. All right, so now back into Windows Explorer. We're looking at our BeamNG mods folder, .24, which is the current version out, mods unpacked, our map name, levels, base template. In here, we're gonna start deleting some of these assets. So like, there's three basic categories of elements that are usually in a stock map. You've got decals, which are the road overlays, like looks like gravel and stuff that goes over the road, or banks, or textures on the side of the roads. You've got forest items, which are your trees, and then you've got your objects, which are all of the buildings and rocks and everything else. So what we're going to start with here is actually we're going to get rid of the decals. And this happens to be in the main decals JSON file for this particular map. Sometimes these files can go into different locations, so your mileage may vary, but I'm going to find it here for Small Island. Now when I open this up, you can see that it's got a basic header on it, and then instances that show all of the positional information for all of the instances of Asphalt Road and everything else. What we're going to do is we're actually going to clear all of this out completely. So starting after this bracket with the beginning of this quote, I'm going to select that. I'm going to scroll all the way down, and I'm going to select all the way to the end square bracket, not the curly one. So I'm going to hit delete. And then I'm going to double check my open and close tags, like for the JSON structure. So I've got an open tag for the object. I've got my header open, header close with a comma, instant open, instant close, and then a close for the object itself. So this is a valid JSON file at this point. We've removed all the instances of the decals. So I hit save on that. Now the other thing that we want to do is if we go into the forest folder here off of base template, forest, you're going to see a bunch of JSON files here as well. And let's just open one of these up and look at it. It's kind of the same thing. We've got positional information with scaling and the type of object it is. So I'm going to close this out in Notepad++. And what we're going to do in this forest folder is we're actually going to select all of these and delete them, because these are just placements of those objects. And then the last thing I'm going to do before we go back and retest is I'm going to go into the main folder, go into the missions group, and let's look at the items level details here. So these are references back to some sub setup files or JSON files as well. And I know that we're not going to need most of these. Camera bookmarks, fish dwelling, these are named locations that contain groups of files. So I don't think that I need any of this. I'm going to go ahead and keep audio. And then, oops. And then let me just delete these first. Then I'm also going to delete the AI waypoints. I don't need that. I also don't need AI roads. In general, on these maps, I tend to just keep the 3 items: level objects, player drop points, and audio. So what this ends up doing when I save this out is it's going to look into these folders, like for audio, and there's another items here which describe the elements in these subfolders. So I've basically, by editing this main one, I've removed the calls to the separate subfolders here, so we can get rid of those as well. We got rid of roads, waypoints, bookmarks, all of these objects. We left the player drop points, got rid of research, stack objects, and trail decals. So again, in this one I happen to be leaving, I need to leave level objects, I'm sorry. Oops. Basically need to leave the same 3: audio, level objects, and player drop point. So we hit delete on those. And then now we're going to go back and retest the layer or the level and make sure that we didn't mess anything up. All right, now click on free roam. And then we're going to find our level. And fingers crossed, we hit spawn. Should bring us into the level, and we should just have a basic terrain. And there we go. All of our objects are gone. We don't have to worry about manually selecting and deleting and all of the nonsense there. And I'm going to go ahead and hit F11 to get into the editor here. I'm going to bring up the scene tree. And you can see that since we removed those elements from the items list, it actually updated our scene tree for us as well because they're not referenced. So this is the fastest, cleanest way that I know to clean up your level and get it ready. So in essence, this is a base map. It still has the existing terrain height field and the existing base texture for the height field, but you could start your own edit of the level right now by just, laying down your own decals or your own roads or whatever. For example, you could just start a new path. So at this point, this is a really good opportunity for us to actually save our work in a zip file so that we've saved our progress for all of the changes that we've made. So again, I haven't changed anything in the editor itself, so I'm going to exit, and I'm going to exit. I don't need to worry about saving in here because I haven't done anything in the editor. Okay, so now that we're back here in Windows, in the File Explorer, we're going to go ahead and make an archive of this. So we've got a restore point for future maps, so we don't have to go through and delete all the stuff that we did before. So inside BeamNG mods, 0.024, we're going to go into the mods folder, go into unpacked, find Small Island template. Now, this is where we're going to actually start our archive. So not at Small Island template, but in the levels folder that's just below it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click. I'm going to add to archive. I'm going to make it a zip file. And I'm just going to call this base template with today's date. I do this just so I can keep track of updates or when I did something. A lot of times you'll be doing iteration on these things, and it's good to kind of know the sequence of time. So I'm going to click OK. I'm just going to go through and zip all of the stuff that's in there. Now, while we deleted the reference to textures and stuff, we actually didn't delete a lot of the textures. So there's a lot of additional cleanup that you can do. I'm not going to get into that in this video. So now we've got a backup. And what I'd recommend is actually putting this someplace safe. So maybe we're going to just cut this and put it on the desktop. So now we've got a backup with everything clean. We know it works. If for some reason from this point forward we mess something up, we can actually come back and restore it here. And actually, let's just do this real quick. We're going to make sure that there aren't any changes that the game wants to apply to this, because what it's going to do is when we load in the level, it's going to read levels first, and anything that's in levels is going to override what's in the mods folder for that level. So I don't have a folder here for base template, which is good. That means that we're clean. There's no secondary things that are going to be applied here. So just to kind of make sure that things are going to work the way we want to, I'm going to go back into mods, unpacked, Small Island template, and I'm going to actually delete everything underneath this. So in essence, we've gotten rid of everything about the map. And I'm going to go back into mods, and we're going to just copy this base template into our mods folder. This is going to be like the way that we would distribute it to friends or other people. So base template from our archive is here. If we open it up, we can see that inside of this still contains levels, base template, and all the stuff that we had before. Let's just go ahead and launch the game and make sure that it works as a mod, as it is. And there it is, it shows up. Even though we deleted all the files that were in the levels folder, it's reading everything that we needed to from the zip file. And we'll just do a complete load here just to make sure everything's good. And there we go. So anyway, this was the basics of prepping a stock map to getting it to a base level for us to use for future edits. And what we'll do in the next session is we'll actually start from this place, and we'll do a custom height map with a custom base texture, and we'll kind of go over some of the fundamentals of bringing in your own height maps. So hope you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully you found it helpful, and we'll see you on the next one.